So we were discussing the Rawls theory of justice, and what he says, talks about the veil of ignorance. That each will then imagine a future society from the point of view of the worst of, if we do not tell them that what position they'll be having, or what is your present status would be like in that society. So then in case, then in that case the person will think from the point of even the worst of, or are people who are at the disadvantaged position. Rawls therefore argues that the rational thinking, not morality, could lead us to be fair and judge impartially regarding how the distribution, how to distribute the benefits and burdens of a society. So that's what he's saying, that then it will be a possible way in which the people will not think of self-interest, and maybe that way we'll be able to we'll be able to create a society which is just and fair. Okay, in this example there are goals and norms. There are no goals and norms of morality, that is, they are given to us in advance. Um and we remain free to determine what is best for ourselves. It is this belief which makes Rawls' theory an important and compelling way to approach the question of fairness and justice. Okay. So now, how do we go about pursuing social justice? If in a society deep and persistent divisions exist between those who enjoy greater wealth and prosperity and power, and the power which goes with such ownership, and those who are excluded and deprived, we would say that social justice is lacking there. We are not talking here merely about the different standards of living which may be enjoyed by different individuals in a society. Justice does not require absolute equality and sameness in the way in which people live, but a society would be considered unjust if the differences between rich and poor are so great that they seem to be living in different worlds altogether. The difference are so huge. Of course we know that the difference between the rich and the poor is going to be there, but if the difference is such huge, that it looks like they're living in different worlds altogether, and if the relatively deprived have no chance at all to improve their condition, uh, you know however hard work they do, and no matter even if they put their heart and soul into it, and then also they're not going to improve their condition. In other words, a just society should provide people with the basic minimum conditions to enable them to live healthy and secure lives and develop their talents, as well as equal opportunities to pursue their chosen goal, whatever goal they have, or whatever they want to become in society. So, various calculations of the minimum requirement of food, income, water, and such facilities have been made by government agency and the United Nations agencies. Search in your school library or in the internet for such calculations. So, there are many calculations, for HDI. Example: Human Development Index is one such uh, index is one such calculation which uses different factors: school going, food, and school enrollment, and various other factors also. So you can look up. It also sees mortality rate, so you can look up at other measurements or measures also, how to measure them. How can we decide what are the basic minimum conditions of life needed by people? Various methods of calculating the basic needs of people, how much calories do they need per day, have been devised by different governments and by international organizations like the World Health Organization. But in general, it is agreed that the basic amount of nourishment needed to remain healthy, housing, supply of drinking water, education, and a minimum wage would constitute an important part of these conditions. Providing people with the basic needs, here we are talking about basic needs, is considered to be one of the responsibilities of a democratic government. However, providing such basic conditions of life to all citizens may pose a very heavy burden on the governments, particularly in countries like India, which have very large number of poor people. even if we agree that states should try and help the most, because we've chosen them as our leaders to represent us, and help the most disadvantaged members of the society to enjoy some degree of equality with others. Disagreements could still arise regarding the best methods of achieving this goal. A debate is currently going on in a society as well as in other parts of the world about whether promoting an open competition through free markets would be the best way of helping the disadvantaged without harming the better off members of a society, or whether the government should take the responsibility of providing the basic minimum to the poor. So this debate is always going on, even and still goes, that whether the involvement there should be free market where there's open competition, or there should be support by the government, if necessary, even through a redistribution of resources in our country. These different approaches are being supported by different political groups, who debate the relative merits of different schemes for helping helping marginalized sections of the population, such as rural or urban poor. We will briefly examine, this debate. I hope you know this person. He's Mr. B.R. Ambedkar. A just society is that society in which ascending sense of reverence and descending sense of contempt is dissolved into the creation of a compassionate society. Okay, so that's what Mr. Ambedkar believes. If we talk about, okay, now we've seen that how should this pursuing of social justice should be done. Should it be like the um open market, or there should be interference by the government, by leaders? Let's see if we talk about them. Supporters of free markets maintain that as far as possible individuals should be free to own property and enter into contracts and agreements with other regarding prices and wages and profits. They should be free to compete with each other to gain the greatest amount of benefit. Of course, if you are free to make this decision and choose whatever the price you want to buy or sell, of course there's going to be free competition, and maybe you will be able to get the maximum benefit, the maximum greatest amount of interest, or whatever you're going to make the maximum amount of profit. But then there is the other aspect also. We'll discuss that also. This is a simple description of a free market, and this is what it means to be a free market. Supporters of the free market believe that if markets are left to left free of state interference, the sum of market transactions would ensure overall a just distributions of benefits and duties in society. Those with merits and talents would be rewarded accordingly, while the incompetent would get lesser reward. They would maintain that whatever be the outcome of market distribution, it would be just. So that's what people who believe in free market think. However, not all free market supporters today would support absolutely unregulated markets. Many would now be willing to accept certain restrictions for certain, for instance, states could step in to ensure a basic minimum standard of living to all the people, they so that they are able to compete on equal. Every time, remember, we are talking about this minimal standards of living, and there should be certain restrictions, okay? But they might argue that even here, the most efficient way of providing people with basic services might be to allow markets in healthcare, education, and such services to develop. In other words, private agencies should be encouraged to provide such services, while state policies should try to empower people to buy those services. It might also be necessary for the state to give special help to the old and sick who cannot compete. But apart from this, the role of the state should only be to maintain a framework of laws and regulations to ensure that competition between individuals remain free of coercion. Coercion is force and other obstacles. They maintain that a free market is the basis of fair and just society. Okay, so that's what believers of free market think. The market, it is said, does not care about the caste or religion of the person. It does not see whether you are a man or a woman. It is neutral and concerned with the talents and skills that you have. If you have the merit, then nothing else matters. One of the arguments put forward in the favor of market distribution is that it gives us more choices. If there is going to be competition, people are going to, make better products, lesser prices, and everything also is going to be there. There is no doubt that the market gives us more choices to consumers. We can choose the rice we eat and the school we go to, provided that we have the means to pay for them. But regarding basic needs and services, what is important is the availability of good quality goods and services. So here we're talking about good quality at a cost, and also we're talking about, of course, we want good quality and also affordability. So these are two important aspects also of free market that have should be taken into account. If private agency do not find this profitable for them, they may prefer not to enter this particular market, or to provide cheap and subs and or to provide cheap and substandard services. Okay, and we've seen, markets do that according in the past they have done it. That is why there may be few private schools in more rural areas, and the few which have been set up may be of very low quality. And you will see, if we allow, pura, just imagine, then in rural areas they're not going to be a good school there, and even if it is, it's going to be of low quality, because their people will not have, or they cannot afford to pay so much amount. The same would be true of healthcare or housing. In such situations, the governments might have to step in. The government will have to step in. Another argument often heard in defense of free market and private enterprise is that the quality of service they provide is often superior to that provided in the government institutions. It is often said that, but the cost of such services may put them in the reach of, maybe put them out of the reach of people. Have you ever visited a private hospital? Just even for, this king meeting the doctor, they charge 1,000 rupees, for even for the appointment. So that's if we talk in terms of affordability, that's not affordable, that's quite expensive, and it will always be out of reach of the poor. Private business tends to go where business would be most profitable, and hence free markets eventually tend to work in the interest of the strong, the wealthy, and the powerful. The result may be to deny rather than extend opportunities for those who are relatively weak and disadvantaged. Arguments can be put forward on both sides of the debate, but free markets often exhibit a tendency to work in favor of the already privileged, and that's a true fact, that free markets are going to benefit the already privileged people, society, community, groups of individuals. This is why we argue that to ensure social justice, the state should step in, so that the basic facilities are made available to all members of the society, regardless of their income status, their caste, gender, also. In a democratic society, disagreements often about issue of distribution and justice are inevitable. Inevitable matlab sure to happen, and even healthy because they force us to examine different points of views and rationally, different points of view, rationally defend our own views. Politics is about negotiation of such disagreements through debate. In our country, many kinds of social and economic inequalities exist, and such remain to be done if they are to be reduced. And much remains to be done, and we know that we still have a lot of work to be done so that it is reduced. Studying the different principles of justice should help us to discuss the issues involved and come to an agreement regarding the best way of pursuing justice. So what is the best way of pursuing justice is still being debated. Justice implies something which is not only right to do and wrong not to do, but some individuals persons can claim from us as his moral right. So it is not only justice is not simply that it is wrong or right to not to do something, but some individual person can claim from us as his moral right. Okay, so I think we are done with this chapter. There are some exercises. Let's see, what does it mean to give each person his or her due? How has the meaning of giving each his due changed over time? Due matlab someone, or something that someone owes, matlab uska hak hai jo. Okay, we've discussed a lot about it. Briefly describe the three principles of justice outlined in the chapter. Explain each. There are examples, and we've discussed those also. Okay. Does the principle considering special needs of people conflict with the principle of equal treatment for all? No, it does not. Because if we until we how if we will not give equal treatment to people who need special treatment, if we don't look after their special needs, won't that be an will not be a um, will that be fair then? How does Rawls use the idea of veil of ignorance to argue that fair and just distribution can be defended on rational grounds? We This is through the veil of uh, ignorance, and we've done that. Okay. What are the generally considered to be the basic minimum requirements when people living healthy, productive? What is the response where the government is trying to ensure minimum to all? We have public distribution system. Remember in India, where food grains, oil, and sugar, uh, rice, dal, pulses are provided as a subsidized rate. And for healthy, how much calorie intake is there, the and how much height to weight to height to age, and all that stunting, wasting is calculated. So there are different methods and measurements what should be the minimum criteria. The For example, also the we can say poverty line. Okay. Calorie intake, and so on the other also. Which of the following arguments could be used to justify state action to provide basic minimum condition of life to all citizens? Providing free services to the poor and needy can be justified as an act of charity. No, it is not an act of charity. This is wrong. Providing all citizens with the basic minimum standard is one way of ensuring equality of opportunity. Yes. If they don't have basic minimum standards of living, how are they going to compete? How are they going to be at a same level? Some people are naturally lazy, and we should be kind to them. No, that's not right. Ensuring basic facilities and a minimum standard of living to all is a recognition of a state, community, and a human right. So this is the correct one. Okay, because this is not true, and others we that those are also not true. But this one, ensuring basic facilities and a minimum standard of living to all, is a recognition of a shared humanity and human right. This can be said, because of course we all are, humans. We all are living beings, and we all share the same a shared humanity. So of course that can be there, and it is our human right also that there should be minimum this thing, basic facilities which should be provided to everybody. So that is also there. So we've done with chapter 4, and if you have any doubt, please comment down or email me, whatever suits you. And yeah, you can just go and look again in the chapters if you feel some important thing is missed out, or you need better explanation for that. And that's it for it for now. And take care of yourself, family, eat healthy, stay healthy, smile more, and stress less. Try to indulge in a hobby, and yeah, be happy. Take care.